Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I am at a event, an auto event, like the big auto sale in Bangkok, Krung Thep, an area called Bang Na.
The value of Tesla overwhelmingly is autonomy. I recommend anyone who doesn't believe that Tesla will solve vehicle autonomy should not hold Tesla stock. They should sell their Tesla stock.
Right behind me, this is the Xpeng G6, and I just want you to see this for a second. You can see this vehicle, the price here, 1.6 million baht. That is less than $50,000. This is a pretty hefty size SUV. And the back seat, you can see there's a ton of room in this back seat. There's a reason why I'm talking about this, why I think this is important. When you look at these vehicles, you see, here we go. Tremendous amount of room in the back. There's a nice interior. You can see a nice display up front. The thing I want you to understand is it's not just Xpeng. There are a ton of EV makers, Chinese EV makers, pumping out competitive vehicles at reasonable prices. So this one is less than $50,000. That's less than a Model Y, and it looks, I'm not saying it's as good as a Model Y, I want to be clear, but this is just one example. And you have, back there is MG, and down the other way, you can see Zeekr. This up here is Zeekr. That's a new brand that's also premium. Off in the distance, and I'll show you later, there's Ion and Neta. There's a number of Chinese EV makers, and the challenge for Tesla investors is if you think like Barry Glack and Lost Gerbil and a lot of people who talk about Tesla, that it's about selling a volume of cars, you're missing it, because the Chinese EV makers are basically going to dominate the market. If there's no FSD, if there's no robotaxi, if there's no Optimus, what's Tesla's future? Making vehicles to try to compete with Chinese EV makers? No. So I'm going to show you here, as I go around, I'm going to pop over and show you different EVs here at this event, so you can see the price points. You'll see things that are like $20,000 for a not bad EV. I'm not saying it's as good as a Tesla, but when you look at the American car market, there aren't many cars you can buy for $20,000, and they're selling some pretty nice cars for under $25,000 here. So this right here, the MG ZS EV, you can see the price up here, 599,000 baht. That is less than $25,000. If you do the math, 180,000 baht, yeah, it's crazy. 36,000 baht, 34,000 baht is $10,000. So this is actually less than $20,000 for this not bad EV. I mean, you can see this is a little SUV, full electric, sunroof, whatever. I don't know if we're going to see a back seat. Yeah, it's not a terrible back seat. 600,000 baht. This sportier looking model here is starting at 710,000. This one's about 800,000 baht. 710,000 is just over $20,000. So this is less than $25,000. Again, they're not as big on range. Their charge rates are low. They don't charge as fast as Teslas. They might charge at less than 100 kilowatts, maybe even 80 kilowatts. If you're on a road trip car, they're not great road trip cars. But if you want a city car, less than $25,000 for that? How's Tesla going to compete with that? It's not that Tesla can't compete. It's that they're not going to dominate the market, and the Chinese are going to continue producing lower cost vehicles. They're going to get their prices down lower and lower. Now this is on the higher end. This is the Maxus 7. This is priced more than a Model Y, but it's like a roomy 7-passenger plus vehicle. We actually sat in a Maxus 7, which is less expensive than a Tesla Model Y, and still much more roomy than a Model Y. And this is the competitive market that all EV makers are going to face. The idea that Rivian or Lucid Motors is going to end up selling at high volumes when they have to compete with all these. The only way you're going to be able to compete with Chinese EVs is keep them out. You can see here a pretty nice, again, minivan SUV type vehicle from Zeekr. And here's the Zeekr X. This is another Geely Motors. Has the Zeekr brand, which is more of a high-end brand, and they're priced, I think, more expensive. They have high charge rates. They're actually pushing charge rates faster than Tesla. Although then, is there charging infrastructure for it? I'm not saying these vehicles are cheap or price competitive yet, but the way the Chinese go, they're going to lower prices. I think they've got like a 5.5C charge rate for this car. It's crazy. Okay, so on that Zeekr I was talking about, the price point, 1.4 million baht. This is less than a Model 3. It's small. I'm looking at it and it's small. So this particular model has 470 kilometers of probably NEDC range, which again, That's, you know, significantly less than a Tesla. But again, 1.4 million baht, very inexpensive. And this one appears to be running nickel, cobalt, manganese battery rather than lithium iron phosphate, which most of the Chinese EVs run lithium iron phosphate. This is the same model. It's actually less money, and it actually has a lower price. It's listed at 1.2 million baht. So, reasonably inexpensive vehicle. I find as I look at it, it's a little small. But if this one has 540 kilometers of NEDC range, that's about as much as a Tesla Model Y. But again, it's smaller inside, but it's significantly less expensive than a Model Y. Significantly. I mean, Model Y is around 2 million baht, so this is 1.2 million baht. Big difference. And by the way, for Americans, just to give you a little bit of a sense of the Thai car market, this is a Toyota Hilux. You can see it's got 4-door, so it's got a smaller bed. These vehicles are super popular. This is the #2 selling vehicle in Thailand behind an Isuzu D-Max, which is similar. And the Ford Ranger has been #5. So they're not as big as Ford F-150s, but they're still decent-sized pickups. This is listed for less than $25,000. This is a gas vehicle. I haven't seen an electric pickup in Thailand yet. Thailand is the second largest pickup truck market in the world, 800,000 vehicles a year. I don't know if they're selling that many right now, but you know, crazy that the prices can be so low here. But you can see how if you bring these vehicles to the American market, it's very tough for American manufacturers to compete. You know, you have to wonder, why are American consumers paying so much for cars when you can buy cars like this in Thailand for less than $25,000? Now, just to show you, this is pretty surprising to me. This is a Volvo EX30, and it's an EV, and it's got 540 kilometers of range, which is roughly competitive with Model Y. It's smaller, and it's priced at 1.6 million baht, which is, I don't know, $40,000. Model Y starting at $2 million. It's, you know, roughly price competitive with a standard range Model 3. And I would argue a Model 3 probably has more range inside and has more advantages. But here's even Legacy Auto, which is really Chinese owned now. Legacy Auto is coming out with EVs that are competitive priced. It's just there's going to be a flood of EVs that are competitively priced. And the only way you're going to stand out is you're offering something radically superior like FSD and Robotaxi. And again, just to give you an idea, this is the Ford Everest, so this is like an SUV version of the Ford pickup truck. 1.6 million baht. That's less than $50,000. It's pretty nicely outfitted. And this is just an example of how Legacy Auto might be in trouble. This is Hyundai Ioniq 5, which is kind of outdated. And it's priced at 2.4 million baht. Now, it may be that they don't have tariff favoritism. The Chinese have a tariff favoritism. The Teslas are able to escape tariffs because they're made in China. So made in China vehicles have an advantage. This is probably made in Korea, and maybe they don't have the same tax advantage that the Chinese do. But 2.4 million baht, very expensive. This is more expensive than a Model Y. Range is crap. You know, maybe in America it's better. This is the Ioniq 6, which is the newer model, and I don't see a price on it. It's probably more expensive. Just another one. Here's a Korean EV5, the Kia EV5, which is priced reasonably 1.3 million baht to 1.8 million baht. 1.8 million baht is about $50,000, a little more than $50,000 now. So again, not a bad EV. Competitive pricing. Very tough for Tesla to compete with just the volume of EVs that are coming out. And you know, the gas cars are going to get clobbered, of course, over the long haul. But for Tesla to stay in the game, if the game was only about selling cars, it's a tough market. It's hard to make a margin on that. So this is a company that I've noticed here, I've never seen anywhere outside of Thailand, Neta, N-E-T-A. And this vehicle priced, this is under $20,000. Small EV, it's not spectacular, but it's under $20,000 for this car. They've got another one over here, the Neta X, that they're pushing, that they're making a lot of progress on. And again, very competitively priced. I think it's close to 700,000, 800,000 baht, under $25,000 for a not bad small EV. You know, small SUV style EV. Pretty impressive stuff. Now the big hitter here in Thailand is BYD. BYD is the top EV seller in Thailand. And you'll see the BYD Atto 3 is the vehicle they've been pushing hard. There's a BYD sedan called the Seal that you can see the white vehicle back there that looks a lot like a Model 3. Like, I would say they copied the Model 3, but then the Model 3 copied their headlights with the new Model 3. So BYD doing some remarkable stuff. This particular Atto 3 is listed at 1 million baht. I've seen them knocking the price down on the Atto 3. down to 900,000, maybe even 800, under 900,000 baht, which you're starting to push like a $25,000 price point. And then back here, the BYD Dolphin, which they're now, I believe, producing in Thailand. They're going to start producing more vehicles in Thailand. I think this might be under 20 grand. And I rode in one as a Grab, which is like an Uber in southern Thailand, Songkhla. It wasn't bad. I'm not saying I would love it. I'm not saying I want to go on a long road trip on it, but if you need a city car and you're paying less than 20 grand and you're paying for electricity instead of gas, and this is, how does Tesla end up competing with that? It's hard. It's not that Tesla can't sell cars. Tesla's a premium brand and they have certain advantages, but if you're just trying to sell cars in volume, it's going to be very, very hard to compete with this. So this is the BYD Seal. Looks a lot like a Model 3. The white one, 1.3 million baht. This one, 1.5 million baht. So cheaper than a Model 3. They don't have quite as much range. They're not bad. And they don't charge as fast. These charge at 150 kilowatts. The Atto 3 charges at 88 kilowatts, which is very slow compared to a Tesla. And for road trips, it's terrible. But again, if you're charging at home, who cares? If you're charging at the local mall near me, the fastest charge rate is 40 kilowatts. So who cares? 2 hours, you got 80 kilowatt hours. Parking's free at the mall for 2 hours, so you're good. So for ordinary life, for a lot of people, this is not bad. And again, the price points get crazy. It's very, very hard to compete with these price points. Another brand I've seen a lot of in Thailand and not anywhere else really is Ion. And you'll see this little sedan is priced at 850,000 baht. Again, these are Chinese EVs. Some of these other vehicles were super hot. And again, I think their prices are pretty competitive. And I think they have a smaller one that's really inexpensive. So how many brands have I shown you so far? And look at that. Ion has some, they're not Falcon wing doors. Those are gull wing doors, but they're trying to imitate Model X, I guess. Not bad. I'm not saying I'd buy it, but not bad. So the Hypertech HT, I think he said it's 2 million baht. You can see they're claiming 600 kilometers of range or more. And then the fast charge are charging 400 kilometers in 15 minutes. A whole bunch of speakers, top, classy seat, and of course you got the gull wing doors. Just another one. This is an Aeon hatchback, and just over 1 million baht and 490 kilometers of range. Again, not real world range, NEDC range probably, so a lot less EPA, but these cars are very inexpensive and they're everywhere and there's all over the place. So I think the last one I'm going to be showing you today is Chang'an Motors has the Depot brand, and then I think this is a different brand, and I forget what the other Chang'an brands are. There might be 2 other brands of Chang'an, but again, these pretty nice looking vehicles selling at competitive prices. There's a flood of them here in Thailand. So you can tell this is totally a city car. The Lumen, I think it's called, only 300 kilometers of range, which is going to be nothing. It's only 479,000 baht, so it's super, super cheap. And then you can see that the back seat is tiny. It's a cute little car, but again, if you need a city car and you don't need a lot else, wow. And then you've got the Deepal SO7, same brand, same company, and you can see 485 kilometers of range, price point at 1.4 million baht. It's a decent size, SUV, really a wagon format, and they look good. So it's pretty impressive stuff. So if you have the Deepal SO7 and you have the Deepal LO7, which is more, I guess, arguably a Model 3 competitor, 540 kilometers of range, 1.3 million baht, very, very competitive pricing for a vehicle that, I'm telling you, these things look good. Now, 540 kilometers of range, I think the Model 3 is listed at 681. The long-range Model 3 is at 681 kilometers of range. I think the Model Y is in that. The standard range Model Y, standard range Model 3 are in this ballpark. I just wanted to close this video by saying, if you think about the prospects for Tesla as a volume seller of electric vehicles in the future, it doesn't really work. It doesn't work because there's going to be so many Chinese EVs that are so price competitive that basically, even if Tesla is able to sell cars in some volume, the price competition will force margins down. And they just, like, if you were thinking Tesla's going to make 25% margins, that's just not a prospect for the future if you're just selling cars. The way Tesla succeeds, and Elon's been talking about this, the way Tesla succeeds is if Tesla sells FSD, robotaxi, something that because the software is great, but if you have to do something that really distinguishes the car, if the car operates as a robo-taxi and it's able to operate 5 times as many hours as a regular car, it's able to operate as a robo-taxi, you have a robo-taxi network, you're able to generate a tremendous amount of revenue from the vehicle. It's not from selling cars that's Tesla's future in cars. It's from selling rides, from creating a robo-taxi network and selling rides. That model still works. That model still generates outsized revenue and outside profits for years. But the idea of selling vehicles in volume, the battery revenue model that I started with in the past, I don't think the battery revenue model holds up anymore because the margins just aren't going to be there because the Chinese are so competitive in making EVs. And yeah, you can keep them out with tariffs, but that's not a good long-term approach. That's not really a long-term solution. You're going to see a proliferation of EV makers who are going to find a way of making EVs at low cost. And it's just, you have to distinguish yourself with something special like FSD and Robotaxi. So Tesla's future as a successful and highly profitable company has to come from the Robotaxi network and Optimus, maybe Tesla Energy, but I don't think Tesla Energy is going to deliver the kind of growth that we are hoping for as Tesla shareholders. So let's be less wrong. T-shirts at elonbits.com. Thank you so much for watching.